Hello, I'm John Lunt. I'd like to offer an example of stewardship and to begin with a definition today. A dictionary says that stewardship is 1, the office, duties, and obligations of a steward; 2, the conducting, supervising, or managing of something, especially the careful and responsible management of something entrusted to one's care, such as stewardship of natural resources. Stewardship comes in many forms. We all carry in our minds an example of one with whom we are familiar who served as a particular example of stewardship. Such an example for me is a friend with whom, and a truly extraordinary man named Alan, with whom I was associated many years ago. Though I knew him only for a few short years, his example has influenced me for nearly 3 decades. Alan was a bright guy, a bright young guy, a gifted pilot. He wasn't married, but he must have had younger brothers and sisters, because whenever his squadron mates got together with their families, Alan was in the thick of things. He was known by all to be a Christian, and he led a Bible study group that was very popular on base. Professionally, in the flying business, he was quick to take on additional duties. And because he worked for me, I was particularly appreciative of the fact that he was willing to serve as a squadron safety officer, flying safety officer. That's a difficult position to fill with someone who does the job well, in light of the fact that it's easy to read an aircraft incident report, but not so easy to interpret its meanings and how to protect yourself from similar situations that were encountered by those who were in the mishap. Alan was one of those who not only related the incident, but talked about potential causes, varied the situation in his discussion to find out of his mates, what would you do if you were in a similar situation? At that time, there was a bit of a conflict going on in Southeast Asia, and all but the very newest of our crews had flown dozens, scores, and in a couple of cases, hundreds of combat missions. But Alan was not contented with the aircraft type he was flying. He wanted to be in the thick of things. He wanted to be flying a single-seat fighter aircraft. And as I recall, he wanted to be a fast FAC, a fast forward air controller, which means that he would be flying his single-seat fighter aircraft, as they say, alone, unarmed, and unafraid. So committed was he to that route to his goal that he resolved to leave the Air Force, in spite of the fact that he was often counseled against it, to transfer to an Air National Guard unit where he might fly the airplane that he desired. He did that and was successful in convincing the leadership of the National Guard organization to permit him to transition to the 2 new aircraft. His transition was, of course, successful, but shortly after completing his qualification in the new airplane, his career was terminated. On a cross-country flight immediately after liftoff, his single-engine airplane experienced a catastrophic engine failure. In his particular case, it's apparent that a compressor blade flew through the side of the aircraft and through the control systems in one wing. Now, in that particular kind of a situation, immediately after takeoff, the obvious answer for a pilot is to raise the leg braces, squeeze the triggers, and become airborne without an airplane, hoping that your chute opened. firing triggers, legs braces raised, firing triggers squeezed. And any pilot who has been thus trained can do it about as fast as he says it. Alan, however, didn't eject. He knew that there was a nursery school below him and to his left on his takeoff route. He elected not to eject. He had, long before he confronted the particular situation, decided what he would do in a similar incident. Full right rudder and as much aileron as he had, he was able to crash straight ahead. Now, the Air Force convenes an accident investigation board whenever a mishap results, resulting in loss of life or a loss of aircraft. These mishap boards are intended to provide information which will prevent the recurrence. And when dealing with the machinery, when analyzing the machine problem, they simply state what the technical problem was there. Where a pilot is lost, they look at the things that a pilot might have done to preclude the situation occurring and to prevent the loss of life. Quite frequently, the simple answer that appears in the accident investigation board is pilot error. Though sometimes it's softened by contributing factors such as supervision or a long duty day or something. In this particular case, that wasn't the answer. Having read reports for several hundred mishap accidents, since I was in an Air Force position that required me to convene 202 boards, I reviewed a lot of mishap reports. In this particular mishap report, the board wasn't able to hang it on the pilot by saying pilot error. They said simply, the pilot cared more for others than he cared for himself. I think Alan would have seen that as his stewardship, the duty and obligation of a steward. Fortunately, few of us are ever called upon to make such decisions or to take such actions. But even after all these years, I can hear him asking, as if in one of his safety classes, what would you do in a case like this?